if I'm a crusader for anything, if we're a crusader for anything, it's that. It's like, stop vilifying boys and their desire and their desires and their desires toward um, sexual energy, thrusting energy, building energy, creating energy, dangerous energy. Um, it's such a vilification, and I am very strongly against that, and I think it's wrong. And we're even more along the lines, even this year than last year, and the year before, and the year before. We're even further down that path of just rancid destruction of the the male archetype, the male psyche, and it's major forces that are flowing and blowing along. We talked last podcast, I think it was, that there's, I mean, certain things you couldn't do nowadays. You couldn't have the TV show Friends nowadays because it's got outdated outdated offensive ideas in it, and comedians are all shut up. You can't say anything offensive anymore. I'm against it completely, and it's a failing of our society. And I don't know, conversation is going to change it, but there's been something instilled in a certain generation. I don't know what exactly that generation is, that will not change. They're going to grow old with these ideologies, thinking that there's an offensiveness in the male psyche, for instance, because they're born into a society that believe that way, and they believe it too. And things that were 20 years ago that were nothing are cast as offensive. And, cancel culture and canceling all these historical figures, as we talked about before. So yeah, that to me is an analog. It's exact same thing is the artistic world throwing out beauty out of art and saying, we celebrating ugliness. I've got books on it, Transfiguration of the Commonplace by Arthur Danto. I got books on this idea that beauty is not something that we ignore anymore. We're ignoring it. We violently cast it out, violently shake it away from us, and say no because the world is not beautiful, etc. And so this violently shaking out the heart of a young man, a young boy, their spirit, and saying it's wrong and it's offensive, and is the same thing that the art world has done. It's stripping out men, making them kitsch, making them sentimental, making them pliable, making them male feminists, and it's all the same thing. It's a stripping away of beauty of the masculine soul. It's taking the beauty out of masculinity and leaving this empty shell of saccharine compliance and apologetic spirit, and it's completely violently wrong in my mind, and it's a sin that we've done it. And I'm against it, and they could cancel me and shut me down, but I'll say it as I'm reaching up through the crowd of pitchforks. This is all the same thing. Restoring beauty. When I talk about restoring beauty, it's restoring beauty in the masculine heart, so we love ourselves as men again. Restoring beauty in the feminine heart, so that we don't have these self-image issues, and we realize that the feminine spirit is a life-giving spirit and is as powerful as the masculine spirit. Not identical. That's a problem. We're trying to blend these two together, which is another sin. So that's a stripping out of beauty, out of polarity of men and women. It's all the same thing. This modern culture has turned her face away from beauty in relationships, in politics, in art, in architecture, in everything. And our thesis and our goal is to restore that, starting with the heart of young men.
So one of the great comments that we had recently was from somebody asking if you can give a bit of a high definition vision of what the beauty of the full-hearted and fully sexual male spirit looks like today. Maybe this is something you can describe because you've seen it with men that you've worked with or that you've known, or men whose journeys have gone from, let's say, shame or hiding or repressing because of what they grew up with, and then they embody it. Can you give a visual of this? Because some people are dying to understand and they don't see it. They don't see a form of masculinity that they're like, yeah, this is great. It's sexual. It's full-hearted. I aspire to that. And it's clear.
Well, I go back to the metaphor that I use, which, without going into it, because we've talked about it over and over again, it's everywhere. It's written in my book. the idea of the integrated man being upper and lower energy
Yeah.
combined, right? Upper respect and all this kind of stuff, lower moving energy, which in my mind defines a very narrow and very specific and very articulated and very real and very historic archetype, an archetype of a masculine spirit who loves life, who loves the spirit of women, who loves the spirit of art, who wants to have an artful life, wants people around him to be elevated in their energy and spirit and fun, just like he is. Wants everybody to be better off having met him, is not a victim, is not complaining about the society and how the world is not fair anymore and how there's no opportunities. And instead of saying, you know, in the midst of all this doom and gloom that we see on the earth, I'm going to go out there and seek beauty and head towards beauty and relationships, etc. It's an archetype, and there's very few men that identify with that. We call it the Amorati, which is an invented archetype, because there is no word in the English language that describes a man like that. There is no word in English that I know of that describes this type of man who's got this love of this joie de vivre and is not necessarily the compliant horse walking around in the stable. He's a stallion. He's got this energy. So we call it the Amorati archetype, and there's historical examples in my mind of men who have this sparkle in their eye, this treasure hunting, treasure seeking spirit, this real desire and love of the people in their life, their family, their wife, their children, the people they meet. They have this real exuberant love of life, and they do not act like victims, and they don't blame society. They don't blame anybody. I'm describing an archetype, which is very real, which we talk about. The Amorati, in my mind, that we're trying to describe all these years, that archetype is a word we invented to cover this archetype of this great lover of life. And we have, you know, the Amorati Guild, which is this group of guys that have like-minded spirit, like-minded trade, like-minded ideas, like-minded winking energy, and they want to be caught up in this, and they want to give to others. They want others to be part of it, which is our Amorati Guild. And we have the practical application of that, which is what we call Vita Amorata, this life of living the Ars Amorata philosophy. So it's all coming together into that spectrum in my mind. And it's an archetype that we're not inventing, but we're really honing in on describing. And I don't think it's been described before.